big Coolidge Corner welcome to BJ Novak.
Thank you very much. Thank you all for coming here. The first time is the music meant to score my sentimental memories of the theater, because I was about to launch into it. The first time I was here at the Coolidge Corner Theatre, I took the T to Longwood from Newton Center. Anyone take the D line here? Anyone take the green line? No. Yes. 15-minute walk from Longwood. And I saw Naked by Mike Lee, which was a brilliant movie about a man's relationship to society, which is what I was going to tell anyone who asked me, and nobody did. The second time I came here also by myself, my little brother's babysitter dropped me off, and it was to see The Age of Innocence, and she almost stopped the car in shock on the way there and said, "Wait, are you going to see this by yourself?" So to anyone here who comes here by themselves to a theater like this, I welcome you. This is really the first time I've been at the Coolidge Corner Theatre with friends, in a sense. So thank you. Shout out to the Pulp Fiction t-shirt, the film I saw at Cleveland Circle that made me want to be a filmmaker. And this is a movie about America. I will announce pretentiously, just like my character does shortly. It's about America, which I think is different to everyone. And here's some of the things it means to me. I'm so happy you wanted to see this, and I'll be around after for a Q&A. Thank you so much.
BJ, thank you very much for spending some time talking about this.
Talking about what I already did is the easiest part of my job. So I'm very, very proud to be here and happy.
It's over now. Are you getting more sleep?
Yeah. I have a little jet lag being in Boston, but yeah.
Fair. So I should say, my name is Ben Brock Johnson. I'm from WBUR in Boston. Any BUR listeners? Yes? All right. And I make a podcast, which makes me a perfect jerk to have this conversation, hopefully. And my podcast is called Endless Thread. It's often about Reddit, and Reddit has a subreddit. Reddit is mentioned in the film.
Yeah.
And there's a subreddit called Movie Details.
Okay.
With great details from film. And in the movie, there's a list of potential titles for the film.
Yep.
Most of them are printed out, but one of them is handwritten, and it says, "Douchebag Goes West."
Yes.
So can you explain that movie detail?
Did people catch that? Oh, cool, okay. Cool. I was fine if it was just an Easter egg on the second viewing, but those little details mean a lot. And I told our production designer so many times, there's a list of titles, but one of them, one of the people there is making fun of Ben and thinks the story is stupid. And he wrote "A Douchebag Goes West," and it's the second to last title, and it's handwritten, but it's handwritten well, because he's trying to make it look like the others. And they were like, got it. So yeah, little details like that.
If only This American Life or NPR show could ever be called that.
But I bet they joke around like that internally.
For sure we do.
100%.
We were...
So we filmed the John Mayer scene before the pandemic, and John was so anxious that the movie would come out before someone else pointed out that people say 100% too much. He's like, we got to own that.
Is he sort of like playing himself with a wink there?
We made it purposefully unclear.
Okay.
So he's in the credits as John.
Right.
In one draft, he was my friend who was distinctly a philosophy professor. And then we kind of made him more of a player friend.
Okay, yeah.
And I considered calling him John Mayer, but I liked that we didn't quite know.
Fair. And we were outside, and I was asking you about noir, but you had said that you felt like in some ways this was more of a Western. Can you talk a little bit about that?
I think that the tropes that I plan, I'm not that well versed in cinema compared to some people here, but it was more of, noir is dark, and I wanted this movie to be very bright. I wanted a blinding brightness, which I found a lot in Texas. And to me, it was more like, a recent example is No Country for Old Men, something that was more good and evil in the Wild West, but modern. There's an image on one of the alternate posters coming out of me, alone on that highway when I'm talking to Issa Rae. And to me, that massive highway with the truck and a Jewish guy with the white shirt and AirPods, that to me, that's a modern Western. That's a stranger comes to town. And so to me, Western, and then specifically, Ashton at the end is wearing a white suit with a white hat. And in a Western, that's the good guy. So I kind of wanted to play with that as a mislead to anyone that was tracking the Western.
You also mentioned while we were sort of coming up here that The Long Goodbye was like an inspiration for you, or
yeah, and I made the mistake of telling that to Jason Blum, who did not like that I mentioned such an unprofitable movie as one of my inspirations. Like, buddy, they don't make The Long Goodbye anymore. I was like, I didn't mean The Long Goodbye. I meant like the gunshot would be the size of the one in The Long Goodbye. But that's another one where Elliot Gould plays, a lean Jewish man with a long wry face who is an unlikely protagonist in a true noir. But, it's kind of ironic, and it has a little wink that this is the guy starring in the movie, but also you take it seriously. And when I wrote Vengeance by B.J. Novak on that title, I felt that's like The Long Goodbye starring Elliot Gould. It's like, okay, this is already interesting. It's funny, but I could follow it, I guess. That's what I wanted the audience to feel. So, as a podcaster, I want to say that a lot of the podcast jokes and references are very on point, very well done. And everything from the like sprinkling the dirt while you're talking into your iPhone to the sort of like pristine and also sometimes ridiculous like mothership depictions. And I just wonder, did you have a podcast consultant? I did a lot of research.
Okay.
I did a lot of research.
You did your own research.
I did a lot of research in Texas. Yeah, that's my Tom Cruise version of stunts. I did. I did a lot of research on Texas.
Okay.
But I also did a lot of research on Brooklyn. So I visited Pineapple Studios. Do you know them?
Yeah, of course.
In Brooklyn, I sat in on a pitch meeting, and they showed me how to use all the equipment. They were very good to me. Oh, I didn't give them a special thanks. Damn it. And my associate producer, co-producer, Nikki Kraft, is an Emerson grad who majored in sound design.
Emerson, in the house. Cool.
He was very adamant about getting all the podcasting details right, and he designed a lot of how the motherboard looks, the software they'd be using. He was the eyes and ears of that. They're
wrong so often. Whenever podcasts are depicted in television movies, like they're pretty terribly done.
I've gotten a little feedback that he would have had a mic, a directional mic, but I don't know.
The shotgun mic with the dead cat cover.
But I can buy that he. This is how seriously I take it. I can buy that he didn't want to draw attention to himself.
Sure. Yeah. Okay. So last question, then I think we should open up to folks in the audience here. You. Obviously, the movie's a comedy in many ways, but you also kind of deal with some really serious and present topics like, the loss of objectivity or the loss of kind of unified truth. And I wonder what in your mind is the kind of message for the viewer in that discussion in the movie, because I think there's a lot of discussion about the moment that we're in the country, and I just wonder what's your message for the viewer about that, you think, via the movie?
Well, I think that it's really about people. The lessons that Ben learns are really the lessons that I wanted to teach myself in the movie. So we live in divided times because we live in divided moments where any of us can ignore someone we're dating and then idealize them on Instagram after they break up with us. This happened to me, and it was part of the inspiration for the movie. We live in different times. Talk radio was only in a certain place and time, so other people couldn't get it. That used to be a part of the movie where Ben felt that podcasting could unite the country because talk radio destroyed it. A lot of ideas did make the cut. But I think, objective truths and perspectives and the lack of objective truth, I think, is the chilling message at the end of the movie that Ashton's character is exploiting.
And even like wanting to play a role, right?
Yeah.
Basically like, oh, I get it. And I'll just
everything
play
means
along.
everything, nothing means anything. I also think that that it's a lot about time, this movie. Vengeance is about regret, Ben says, and it's really a reckoning with regret, which is why I think he reckons with the man who would have been his hero, who he wished he was, a cooler and smarter version of himself. So what is the message? I think I like that there is no message, though, to be honest. I think the message is, the message is the tone. The message is, let's sort of enjoy and be invested in and troubled by the truth and the people that we're around. I think the message is the tone.
Let's open it up to questions. You guys have questions? Way up top. Go ahead. Yell it out.
First of all, thank you for being here. Really enjoyed the movie.
Thank you.
And I was wondering, what was the inspiration behind the movie? Why Texas? Why did you choose to take that in the...
Well, at first I was at the Cannes Film Festival in 2009, very glamorous sounding answer, and there was a poster for a movie called Vengeance that was a true Hong Kong movie called Vengeance. And I thought, I want to be in a movie called Vengeance. And I liked it the same way, the Elliot Gould thing, and I forgot all about that idea. And then separately, I had this idea about someone, I was in a shallow phase of my life that is over, I think, but I'm not sure, where I hung out with the real John Mayer and felt cool and was empty and ignored people that I was supposed to be paying attention to and vice versa. And I did long for this relationship after it ended that I hadn't been in the moment for. And I thought, what if, someone in this situation, that scenario came to me. What if someone was asked to avenge the death of someone they barely were dating, in their opinion? And I thought that was funny. And then I looked at a map and I thought, well, what's the last place a guy like me wants to be? Now, it wasn't Texas. It wasn't Texas. And by the way, I do love small towns in middle America, so a guy like me, not me. But I was looking in the Midwest, and then I saw Texas, and I thought, well, that's a movie. It was actually too obvious. I was like, oh, that's so fish out of water. Obvious. Texas is so stereotypy. And then I thought, well, A, maybe that makes it fun to watch. And B, maybe there's something under the surface about it that I could discover. So let's go to Texas. And then I came to love Texas the way that a lot of people mythologize Texas. A lot of people in this room would love Marfa, would love Austin. And it's not just that it's artsy. Texas is beautiful. It's a way in to a place like that.
Yes, right here.
Thank you for making a movie that was so entertaining, but very thoughtful.
Thank you.
It's hard to do that. But I have two questions. One is, you talk a little bit about the music.
Yeah. Did you like it?
Yeah.
Okay.
And what's the deal with Waterford?
The music,
It's just there. That's the deal.
it's always right
It's
there. So I'll start with that. Waterbird, that came from a real conversation where they literally were saying it's always right there. And I was trying to pin down, great, then what? And I realized it's just a feeling. It's just like, why do you love the Red Sox? It's not because Eovaldi is a good pitcher. Why do you love Dunkin' Donuts? It's not the donuts. It's
or the coffee, really.
I like the coffee, but
Oh, fair.
I'm
There you go.
habituated.
True blue. All right.
So I realized, okay, that's what you're saying. That's what you're saying. And I thought, well, that's also good for an analytical person to try to nail down what is the reason. And the reason is just you love it. You just give yourself over to it. And then the music was, it was one of the most intimidating parts of the movie to me was, my formative experience was on The Office, which taught me a lot about tone, a lot about comedy, a lot about acting and writing, but nothing about music or aesthetics because the look was completely set and there's no music. So to direct is a lot about getting the music and mixing the music and editing the music. And I through John Mayer, was introduced socially to Phineas O'Connell, Billie Eilish's brother and producing partner. who, by the way, just won an Oscar for Best Original Song a few months ago. And he had never composed a score. And my friend Nicky, the Emerson guy, I was like, I'm at a party with Phineas. And he's like, ask him to score Vengeance. I'm like, no, I'm not gonna fucking ask him to score Vengeance. And
And then
an hour later and a couple of drinks later, I'm like, you ever think about scoring movies? He's like, I'm dying to score a movie. And I was like, my favorite score is The Social Network. He's like, my favorite score is The Social Network. And I told him, I'm working on this movie, maybe you could score it. He's like, I would love to score your movie. And he did. And the score is amazing. And I only wish I could have found a way to put more of his compositions in, because you hear on those final 5 minutes all the other things he wrote, which I think in many ways are better music than even what's in the movie, but they didn't fit the moment exactly. So I had to work with the sound editor to figure out how to put stuff in. I hated giving Phineas notes because I felt so lucky he was doing it. But he loved taking notes. I hope I do more movies with him too, because I think we both learned so much. He did a first draft of the score, and then I saw The White Lotus on HBO. And I was like, wait a second. I called him. I was like, I think we're supposed to have a theme that keeps coming back. And he's like, damn it, you're right. We didn't know anything. So we had to be, all right, well, how about there's a Texas theme that comes back, and there's an Abilene theme that comes back, and there's a podcast theme that comes back, and there's a Vengeance theme that comes back. So we worked on these themes, and you can see them repeat in the movie.
Right here.
First of all, I love the movie. It was absolutely amazing.
Thank you.
I just wanted to know, what was your favorite part of the filming process of the movie? What was your favorite?
Well, in general, when we went back post-COVID, it was so exciting that we were back at all. And I just made the decision to enjoy it. And I'm such a perfectionist, and I'm so nervous all the time that I never enjoy anything I do. And I realized, you know what? I'm going to make as good a movie whether I enjoy it or not. So I might as well just enjoy it. So the decision to enjoy it. But, I loved when I was out of my comfort zone and it worked. The shot of the truck arriving at the house. I had this vision. It's this epic thing, and the truck and the camera, and we need to rent a crane, and I described it, and I had total imposter syndrome. Why are they listening to me? I don't know this stuff. And I was right, and they did it with me. And that was the most gratifying, when I scared myself and did it. And I loved that the producer, Cooper Samuelson, that Schindler's List joke, he was like, this is not gonna fly. I was like, this is my compass. When I get this right, you'll know the movie works. I'm gonna ground it. He's like, what's the tone of the movie? And I'd say, that joke in the script? When you believe that he's saying that, that's when that's when we have it.
Up there.
Hey, awesome movie, by the way.
Thanks.
Something I took away from
I still love hearing that, because so few people have seen it. So honestly, you're the first people to see it, in the grand scheme of things.
something I took away from the end of the movie when Ben kills Ashton Kutcher is rejecting his message that the thing of ultimate importance is the recorded legacy
Yes.
of the world.
Yes.
And then he goes and deletes the podcast. And yet that's a message being delivered in what will now be a core part of your recorded legacy on the world. So do you think that's a question you're asking yourself? Also, what do you think of the storyteller or ways you can tell
There's more? I can't handle two crises at once. No, what's the second part?
maybe how Ben, with his own podcast, is sort of self-centered and exploitative of the family?
What's the first part of that part, the question? I missed the first part of the exploitative question.
Do you think, what do you think are ways as a storyteller that you can deliver these stories in ways that don't, fall into the trap of how the protagonist feels about the story he's telling?
Well, I do believe in the recorded thing being your legacy to an extent, and I think I'm fighting that. I think it is an egotistical and, in fact, self-limiting idea. And I have a friend who pointed out to me that he's a musician, and he said, in his opinion, your legacy is not the recordings you make. It is the influence you have on the next generation and their influence and their influence. And that reminded me of how parents feel. They teach their kids, who teach their kids, who teach their kids. And I thought, well, that is a much more human and permanent way to have a legacy, but it's completely giving up your own ego. So I'd like to get to there. Hopefully I've influenced some filmmaker in this room, like the Pulp Fiction t-shirt guy I was telling. So I think that is, but that, some things like the shallowness at Soho House, I haven't totally shaken. So I think that might be something I haven't shaken. But the rejection, I feel, again, there's not a message in this movie as much as here's some things in the world and different things to feel. So the first Ashton Kutcher monologue where he's talking to the recording artist about how the universe started with a sound, and this is the record of our existence, I think that's very profound too. So I think that, I don't know if I feel exactly the way Ben feels, but I admired what Ben did.
Redditors in the front row here.
Does it ever feel weird seeing yourself up on that screen? Does it ever feel weird knowing where you are? And if it doesn't feel weird, if it feels normal, like how did you get to that point where it's just...
I think it's innate to me that I was telling someone just earlier today that imposter syndrome, I love imposter syndrome. Everyone's trying to convince people don't have imposter syndrome. And I love it because I feel like, how are they letting me do this? How are they letting me do this? I'm I'm going to frame this shot, and like a director of photography is like, okay, cool, the light will be like this. And I'm like, how are they letting me do this? But to me, it's fun. It's fun and it's rebellious. And I think that's a very important part of the artistic spirit, at least the way I see it, is that you should feel like you're storming the gates, like you're putting graffiti on the world of art. Yeah. So thank you.
Go ahead.
Thank you very much. You don't have to do that anymore, but thank you. Well, it really came to play as an editor because, you film different angles one at a time, and the angle on me, my close-up, and then a push-in, and it's a very subtle thing and very hard to convey in the script that someone is impressive, You see it in movies about stand-up comedy all the time. Someone performs and they're not very funny. And then people are like, you're the best comic I've ever seen. It's hard to write that. So to write something that is, quote unquote, brilliant, that we're telling the audience, this is smart and our smart character is impressed, it was hard to convey. And so I remember that was a hard one to edit because I was overacting and underacting and I really wanted to convey what I wanted the audience to know, but I didn't want to force it. I considered putting a little music under it. And in fact, the reason why we cut to Issa Rae once we go inside the house together and he's talking about dating, et cetera, it's an unusual place to cut away. But I wanted to show that our smartest character was impressed too when she was listening too. So it was really about the editing. Thank you.
Okay, last question. I'm going to come to you. We're going to end with a comment instead of a question.
I apologize. That was weird. Sorry.
That's okay. Go ahead.
Oh, okay. So I remember saying that there was really much of a message that you were trying to convey as much as like a theme, I guess. But at the end, when he deleted all the podcasts, I kind of thought of like how you're talking about like how time can take snippets of time, pictures, text. It's like nothing's really intimate anymore. That's kind of like, that was a whole experience that he wasn't even expecting to have because Aveline decided to just give, that guy, Ashton Kutcher's character, Ben's name. But really to me, like, he made an intimate moment with these people.
Yeah.
And it wasn't just something for show.
Yeah.
It's like someone's real life, real emotions, real things. And it was just like, I don't know, to me it was like, I'm going to suggest some things aren't just meant to be like content for money or clout or this or that we do nowadays, influencing and podcasts. And it's all great, but some things are done just for like revenue or money. And
yeah.
This was
most
something
things
that would have been great for that, right?
Yeah.
But he was like, I think I'm going to just nix it. And
Well,
just
I'm
have
so
that
glad you took that away, and I feel that the follow-up scene, or a couple scenes later, he's in the truck with Sharon, and she says, "What about that story with Abby?" And he says, "I think that story's just for us." And then this is maybe more meaningful to me. It might be subtle or personal, but then she says her no regrets thoughts, which to me is the most insightful thing that Ben could have gotten on a podcast, and his recorder's off. And, something like that is very, it's podcast gold. It's the wisdom of a woman who blah, 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 blah. And he's just listening to it, and it ends with it ringing in his ears rather than on a recording. So I'm glad you took that, because that really was what I was looking for.
It's the worst when that happens. And also, you have a beautiful voice, and you should have a podcast.
Can we get one more over here?
Go ahead.
I just want to say it was great, but I wanted to ask about the cast. You have an eclectic cast with Issa Rae, Ashton Kutcher, you've got Sharon from Succession, you've got Dove Cameron from Disney, what I know from. I mean, there's so many different. Do you have any good stories that you want to, that are interesting stories about the cast and how it keeps you here?
Chloe Maya, is that it? Do you? Hi, this is my friend from the neighborhood. So what was your thought on Dove Cameron? Anything you'd like to know?
Oh my God, I just love her.
I was tipped off.
Yeah. No, it's really cool to see her in just like a small character role. Like I felt like even though like that wasn't like a super huge part of it, it was really cool to like see her in that. Really like everyone in the cast, they felt like real people.
Wonderful. Thank you. Yes, I really did go for, it was very important to me that the cast didn't just feel like big names or dynamic people, or good actors, but a dynamic cast that was an unusual combination, where Issa is really from the HBO world and Ashton is sort of a pop culture icon, and Boyd Holbrook is an actor's actor, but he's from Kentucky, and then Luann Stevens is from Texas, but great actress, Friday Night Lights. J. Smith Cameron is best known from Succession in New York theater, but she's playing a Texan. Isabella Amara, the sister Paris, is just a great working actress in Atlanta, and El Stupido was just a kid from Albuquerque, Crawl from Albuquerque, the cops from Albuquerque, where we
Gem.
based the
That
group.
kid was a gem.
He was wonderful.
The
and
best.
I knew we'd find him. I just knew it. And in terms of Dove, I had not heard of Dove Cameron, and we got this tape, and it was hilarious and so specific. And we had read some pretty good auditions, but I was like, who is this person? I look her up, like 50 billion Instagram followers. I'm like, well, that sounds good, but who is it? And from what I researched, I had no indication that she would be able to do such adult comedy. And I asked for a callback, despite her being the best, just to see if it was a fluke. And she was even better. So we brought her on, and I love that, and it sort of is, again, if the tone is the message, I think the tone of the movie being that it is a combination of people you wouldn't think would be together, all together. I think it was what I was hoping to accomplish.
BJ Novak.
Thank you, Ben. Two
Tell your
podcasting Bens united.
Thank you.
Thank you very, very much for coming. What if I just dropped the mic?